Mr. Minister, thank you so much for being with us, and welcome to Georgia again, and welcome to our program again.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
So first of all, let's talk about the decision, EU's decision about the Ukraine, Moldova and Georgia, which we had yesterday. And this morning you had a press conference in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and you criticized quite seriously the decision of European Union. And could you please explain a little bit more what was the logic of EU's decision regarding giving the candidacy to Ukraine and Moldova, but not to Georgia?
Unfortunately, I cannot answer your question because I do not see the logic behind. The logical decision would have been to provide a candidate status for all three countries and not to make a differentiation. Because what the European Union has done this way is nothing but applying double standards. Because they have put forward preconditions for you, which you have to fulfill first, then become a candidate, while for the others, these preconditions come only after the decision. And of course, we were in favor of granting the candidate status for both Ukraine and Moldova. That's not a problem. We welcome it. We welcome it. But giving the candidate status for them and not giving to you, that's the problem. That's the problem. And the real challenge is that preconditions which have been put forward for you are basically unexplainable, absolutely not concrete, just political, and no performance indicators attached. This means that there will be a very subjective judgment, because there can be no objective judgment, just very subjective judgment.
After the 6 months.
Yeah. We don't know who's going to decide and on what basis. Because those preconditions which have been put forward, many of them are just simply senseless. So they say political polarization. But come on, in a democracy, there are more parties running for the trust of the people. Of course they are polarized because one is a right wing, the other one is a left wing, the third one is center, one is nationalist, the other one is patriot, the globalist, liberal, conservative, Christian Democrat, whatever. So of course it's polarized. So what do we want? A one-party system? But that's communism. So polarized interior or domestic political situation is a nature of democracy. So, or involvement of civilians into decision-making process. Well, the involvement of the civilians into decision-making process is the elections. Yeah. So if there are free and fair democratic elections where people can take part, they make a decision which direction they want the country to go. And then the government, the ruling party, the majority in the parliament must behave accordingly. That's how it works. So, to be honest, we are very frustrated and disappointed with this decision.
So in that regard, can we consider the conditions as a kind of polite way how to refuse to give the candidacy status?
No, that's a nice way where you have said it. I guess that's very close to truth.
So, Prime Minister Orban, a few days ago, and even if I'm not mistaken yesterday, he was requesting from the EU to give the candidacy status to Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia and Bosnia-Herzegovina. But based on the decision-making process inside the EU, that is based on the mutual agreement.
Unanimity, yeah.
Yes. So why did he change his mind yesterday?
No, we didn't change our mind. We were advocating for the candidate status for all four countries. But since you need to make a unanimous decision in the European Union, of course only those countries could have been given the candidate status which had the support of all the 27 countries. We were absolutely in favor, and we are absolutely in favor in your candidate status, and we want the European Union to make up its mistake. That's the same with Bosnia and Herzegovina. Bosnia and Herzegovina is only 70 kilometers away from us, so we know very well the situation there. Bosnia and Herzegovina's domestic political situation is rather fragile. It's very complicated and unstable. And we have talked to the leaders there, and they made it very clear that basically the only common denominator among the players of domestic politics is the support towards the European integration. So they have all asked for the possibility of being granted with a candidate status. But European Union has not given that either. My question would be the same. What you have asked from me at the very beginning was the logic behind. No one knows, because there's no logic. If the European Union had strategic vision and the geopolitical approach, both countries, yours and Bosnia and Herzegovina, should have been given the candidate status.
So to understand the Hungary's position yesterday on this kind of mutual agreement, so this is because that your choice was either giving the candidacy status to Ukraine and Moldova or giving the new candidacy status to no one.
No.
Like
our position was to give.
This was your choice with the
I understand you. Yeah, right. Since everybody agreed among the 27, I mean, that both Ukraine and Moldova should get the candidate status, they got it. But since there was not a unanimous agreement on whether you should get the candidate status, unfortunately you didn't get it. But we were among those who were advocating for you to get it, but unfortunately you need to have unanimity, and we were not 27 of us. And it's very hypocritical, I have to tell you, because I'm pretty sure that when leaders, foreign ministers of those countries who have not been in favor of you yesterday visit here, they speak very positively, I'm pretty sure, and they never mention any problems, But when there are closed doors, then they are super brave. But this is exactly the same situation when it comes to the Western Balkans, The countries in the Western Balkans are very disappointed now, with a good reason. Although Montenegro has all chapters opened in the negotiations, not a single chapter has been closed in the last 5 years. Serbia is always very heavily criticized for not aligning with the common foreign and security policy lines of the European Union. North Macedonia has changed its name to become part of European Union in the future, but the accession talks have not been started because of the Bulgarian objection. Albania is being considered in one group with North Macedonia, so since North Macedonia couldn't start the accession talks, Albania couldn't start the accession talks as well. Bosnia and Herzegovina has not received candidate status. Kosovo has not received the visa-free status yet. So all of them are disappointed with a good reason. And my fear is that with these illogical decisions made by Brussels, European Union will lose a lot of strength, and it's another missed opportunity.
So explanation of Mr. Macron, the president of France, was that there was a two-part of these explanations why what had happened, what we have seen yesterday. So on one part, this is a war in Ukraine. But how much it is correct to speak about the war, because as you know, we are still in the conditions of the war with Russia, since we have another peace agreement with them, and actually in 40 kilometers from Tbilisi are located the Russian military bases. So in that regard, how much is it correct to say that there is somewhere there is a war, but there is no war in your country? So is it correct? Is it fair?
I think what is not fair is the double standards. What is not fair is double standards. And I don't want to discourage you from being committed to EU membership, but we in the European Union, I mean Hungary, we are faced with a similar kind of double standards as well. For example, currently, we Hungarians do not receive the European Recovery Fund, which is partly our money, by the way. It's not a humanitarian donation, it's not a gift, it's not a present, it's partly our money. We don't get it because of similar kind of political reasons like you. You don't get the candidate status. So similar kind of expectations are being put forward for us, which are again like bubbles, like perceptions, and not real issues. So unfortunately, this is kind of part of the Brussels game. And these double standards are being applied even within the European Union. So I think this is unfair to apply double standards with countries outside of the European Union as well.
Another explanation was about the geopolitics and geography. That Georgia is located somewhere there with Armenia and Azerbaijan. It was very interesting because is it somehow the recognition from the European side, especially the Macron, for instance, he was the author of this statement. Is it kind of recognition of spreading the spheres of influence that Caucasus, Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Armenia is a sphere of different players' influence? For instance, Russia, for instance, Turkey, Iran, maybe some other players, even China or something like that, and Moldova and Ukraine is another sphere of influence of EU, for instance.
I don't subscribe to this explanation either. I mean, the explanation of the president. I don't agree with that. Georgia's application should not have been judged upon geographic location. because geography is a determination. I mean, it was not you to decide your house number, right? History has appointed that. As we Hungarians, we are living in the heart of Europe, French are living in the western part of Europe, and you're living here where you are living. So, but I don't think that geography should determine whether you might become members of the European Union or not, because you are in Europe, no question. I mean, you belong to us culturally, historically, principally. That's not the question. So.
But don't you think that matters for French decision?
Oh, that I'm not brave enough to consider myself as understanding the French mindset in this regard. I think this decision is against the European interest, is against the interest of strengthening the European Union, and I just can't imagine what was in the mindset of either the German or the French behind this illogical decision of not granting you with the candidate status. I have no idea.
Are you optimistic about it after 6 months?
Look, I don't want to say I'm not optimistic because I don't want to discourage anyone here. But having seen these kind of preconditions, these are not concrete. I mean, if the preconditions had been like, change this law on that point, change that law on that point, eliminate this law and come forward with the new law on that. That might have been easy because you say, okay, we have to, the government has to decide whether it's appropriate or not. If it is, then submit the proposal to Parliament, and then Parliament can decide. But these are not such kind of issues. I mean, these issues can be judged either way or another way. So I think it's a matter of political will, whether you become this status or not. And currently, this political will was lacking. We have to be honest.
Mr. Minister, we touched somehow the war in Ukraine, but actually this war is kind of serious challenge to EU. Yeah. I believe the serious challenge even not just the humanitarian or social or economic level, but also to the challenge to the unity of EU. And yesterday's decision was somehow the illustration of this kind of unity or disunity about some issues, some important issues. So. As much as it is crisis, as much as it is challenge for EU, I can't see the leadership of EU to solve this problem. I more see that EU is the part of the conflict, part of the problem, than the leader of someone to settle the problem. Why that happens?
You know, I would be happy to say that I don't agree with you. But unfortunately, you are right in a way that it seems, at least, that no one is working for the solution. Yes. We are a neighboring country to Ukraine, a direct neighbor. Whenever there's war in the neighborhood, it puts a security risk on you as well. And I don't have to explain it too much here in Georgia, unfortunately. In Hungary, we consider all minutes spent with war in Ukraine as a security risk on our country. Physical security, economic security, security of safe energy supply. That's why we Hungarians are absolutely interested in concluding the war as soon as possible, like you yourself are. And we want to avoid a situation where it would be the Hungarian people to pay the price of the war. As far as I understand, your government has a similar kind of approach. And in the meantime, by making decisions on sanctions, for example, we should not forget about the reality. Now, what is the reality? Hungary, for example, is being dependent on cooperation with Russia on energy, for example. And this is not because we would love this situation, not because we would have picked this situation, chosen this situation for us. This is determined by geography, by history, and by infrastructure. And this reality is somehow missing from the decision-making process of the European Union. And you're right that sometimes our unity is being kind of tested or challenged because those proposals which are being submitted by the European Commission, for example, leave absolutely out of consideration the different nature of the EU member states when it comes to location, geography, history, determination, or dependency on like energy or any kind of issues. So leadership, yes, it's lacking. Many times we feel it. We felt the lack of European leadership under COVID as well. We felt the lack of European leadership when it comes to the economy-related challenges. And you might be right, seeing it from outside, that it seems that Europe does have no leadership in resolving this issue.
To sum up our conversation, and I would like to sum up it with this particular crisis, what do you think? What could be the possible outcome of this war, of this crisis? Is it new Cold War? Is it new Iron Curtain between EU and Russia? Or is it still possible to come to any kind of agreement about the security architecture or some kind of future cooperation or somehow to settle all the problems that we have right now?
You know, we are located in Central Europe, in a place where a country has a natural desire for East-to-West cooperation. Because if you don't have East-to-West cooperation, that would always put a security risk on your country. That's why we were always interested in a pragmatic dialogue between East and West. We were always happy when top-ranking officials of Russia and the United States have talked to each other. We were in favor of a pragmatic cooperation based on mutual interests and respect between Russia and the European Union. Now I think it's over for a while, unfortunately. And our hearts are bleeding because the main losers of this situation are countries in Central Europe, because we are always in between, geographically speaking. I also remember those times when it was about the economic and trade cooperation zone between Lisbon and Vladivostok. You know, now this is just a dream. This is over. This is not reality at all. What I see is that with the war and with the sanctions, we are cutting basically all ties of pragmatic and realistic cooperation between East and West. Unfortunately, this is how I see the situation. I hope I will not be right. But currently, I see just very, very limited hope to have a kind of cooperation between East to West in the future, unfortunately.
Mr. Siertos, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Sharing these ideas with us. Good luck.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you
I was
so
happy
much
to
for
come.
coming.
No, I was very happy.